How does Ian Gary actually match up with a monster like Islam Makhachev? On the feet, Gary is an absolute nightmare. He's incredibly long, highly technical, and uses a tricky style that can give anyone serious problems. But the moment this fight hits the canvas, the entire conversation changes. Gary might be skilled enough to survive on the ground for 5 rounds, but he is absolutely not getting the better of Islam down there. Javier Mendez is completely certain about that. The stand-up is a different story because one clean punch, one perfectly timed knee, or a head kick can completely rewrite the script in a split second. But on the mat, Gary isn't dominating anyone. At best, he is just fighting to survive. His takedown defense is decent, but it is nowhere near elite enough to stop a fully committed blast double from Makhachev. Plus, Islam is so dangerously dynamic that his corner can literally change the blueprint mid-fight, telling him to strike in round 1 and instantly drag him down in round 2. Yet, Ian Gary just put out a massive statement. He claimed his dream scenario is a 4th-round finish. He explicitly said he doesn't want an early knockout because early stoppages leave room for excuses, ifs, and buts. The kid is overflowing with an insane amount of confidence. But when you are dealing with the undisputed pound-for-pound king of the world, calling a specific round for a knockout sounds entirely misguided. It's setting yourself up for a devastating night inside the cage. Nobody is saying Gary has 0 chance of winning, but against a champion like Islam, you take the victory however it comes. If you get the win, the method doesn't matter. Initially, everyone assumed you needed a massive one-shot knockout artist to catch Islam because nobody is beating him on a scorecard. But look at the chaotic year we've had with Sean Strickland, Khamzat Chimaev, Justin Gaethje, and Ilia Topuria. The sport is filled with mind-blowing upsets right now, so counting Gary out entirely is a massive mistake. The kid is hyper-talented, and nobody should just blindly glaze Islam like he's invincible. Even casual fans and hardcore analysts are deeply split on this matchup. When you ask around, a massive portion of the MMA community automatically sides with Islam simply because of his suffocating wrestling pedigree, which is notoriously difficult to break. Some people even consider him one of the greatest to ever lace up the gloves. But on the flip side, plenty of fans see a legitimate path to victory for the challenger. If Ian Gary can successfully employ his high-level fight IQ, stay calculated, and stick his takedown defense, he has a real undeniable chance to pull off the unthinkable. Said at the top of the video, I actually think Ian Gary has a really good chance in this fight, and it pains me to say that as someone that again I need to stress this. Hate Ian Garrett. Have I mentioned that in this video, and I'm a fan of Islam Morose. Okay, but I just need to be real. I feel like Islam Morose is playing with fire by not having turned right around. He got offered a fight at UFC 324 after blobbing JDM taking 0 damage and moving up to 170. So, it's not even this massive weight cut for him now. He clearly bulked up and filled out into the division. But still, it's not the same as cutting to 155 and turning right around, and he turned it down for whatever reason, right? We don't know. He got offered the White House card, apparently turned that down due to injury. And now we're hearing all these rumors that he's going to be back at UFC 330. Again, I'm going to build that card later on in the video. But I feel like he's given these guys a lot of time to improve. He's given Leon Edwards. Oh, what's this kid's name? Carlos Prates, Ian Gary, even Michael Morales, even though I don't think he should be in the conversation. He's given all of these guys time to get fights and get better. And they're younger than him. They're hungrier than him. And the biggest thing for me that concerns me about Islam Makhachev in this division is I feel like I'm seeing a pattern right now in the weight class, and I'm going to point it out to you, and it actually makes me sad to accept this as a JDM fan, but there is just a certain build that is dominating this weight class right now, and it is the tall, lanky, well-rounded strikers. Okay, listen to this underscore theory. Look at the top 5. Ian Gary, Carlos Prates, Michael Morales, and then JDM and Bala Muhammad, who have lost to these guys basically. You know what I'm saying? Think about what I'm telling you, right? Ian Gary, tall, lanky striker with solid grappling. He beat Bala Muhammad the exact same way JDM did, except JDM did better. You know, whatever. But stuffed his takedowns, pieced him up. That's a good win. But he gets in there with Carlos Prates and he's able to match his frame and do well against him on the feet, outstrike him, mixing the grappling more effectively than JDM was able to. Ian Gary with his build and his skill set is able to beat both the guys that JDM and these guys can beat, like in Sean Brady and Ball Mamd, these guys can beat, right? but also is able to beat the other tall lanky like mutants at 170 like Carlos Prates. Same with Carlos Prates. Dude, this is unfair, bro. This guy's massive. I saw this guy in person. It was like an Arkham boss battle started when this guy jumped around the cage. He can handle grappling. We saw it against Leon Edwards. We saw it against JDM. We saw it against Ian Gary. Stuffed basically all of his takedowns and on the feet. He's like, __, Prime Anderson Silva. Ian Gary and a dizzle that Dagestan vs. Ireland 2. Ian Gary's legit as Islam moving up. I think Ian's gonna be quite a bit bigger just frame-wise. Confident. Yeah. And confidence is important. I know we saw Elia how confident he was and that didn't pan out too well, but confidence is still one of the most important attributes in fighting. And Ian Gary is confident that he can go out there and beat Islam. My defense and my fight IQ is second to none in this game. The more fights I have, the more people are going to understand and respect it. I think that's why he's saying all these things is he knows this is a tricky fight. And when he goes to bed and when he just before he's about to close his eyes, he goes, "This is going to be tougher than I think." And speaking of Carlos Prates, this guy is completely unfair. I've seen him up close in person, and it literally felt like an Arkham Asylum boss battle started the moment he began jumping around the cage. His grappling defense is legit too. We saw it clearly when he fought Leon Edwards, JDM, and Ian Gary. He stuffed almost every single takedown attempt thrown his way and looked like Prime Anderson Silva on the feet. This Dagestan vs. Ireland Part 2 matchup is the real deal, and as Islam moves up, Ian Gary is going to look significantly bigger just from a pure structural frame standpoint. Confidence is everything in this sport. I know we saw Ilia Topuria carry an insane amount of confidence recently and things didn't pan out great for his opponent, but self-belief remains a fighter's most powerful attribute. Ian Gary is fully convinced he can outclass Islam. He keeps telling everyone that his defense and fight IQ are second to none in this game, and that the more he fights, the more the world will respect it. He is saying all of this because he knows deep down how tricky and high stakes this matchup truly is. When he goes to sleep at night right before closing his eyes, he knows internally that this will be a much tougher test than he lets onto the cameras. But he firmly believes Islam's team has absolutely nobody who can emulate his unique eyes, his range, and his fluid style. Islam Makhachev has beaten everyone the UFC has put in front of him for over a decade. And for the first time in years, a growing number of people inside the sport are asking the same uncomfortable question. What happens when the puzzle he's solving finally has no obvious answer? That is the exact conversation surrounding UFC 330, where the reigning welterweight champion defends his title against Ian Gary, and where the phrase getting repeated across the combat sports world right now is simple. This is the fight that could finally expose him. It sounds dramatic until you look at who is saying it. This isn't casual internet noise. Analysts within the combat sports community have pointed out that Gary represents a completely different geometry problem than anything Makhachev has faced since he moved up from lightweight to claim the 170 pounds title. He is tall, he is rangy, and he moves in angles most welterweights simply don't have the frame or the footwork to create. For a fighter who has made a living walking straight through people, that alone is enough to make this fight feel unpredictable in a way Makhachev's other title defenses never did. Let's set the stage first. Makhachev is riding a 16-fight winning streak tied with Anderson Silva for the longest in UFC history. His only professional loss came over a decade ago. A first-round finish that has been buried under year after year of dominance ever since. He didn't just hold the lightweight title. He ran through that division so completely that he went up a full weight class and took the welterweight belt from Jack Della Maddalena. Anyway, there is a real argument that he is the best fighter walking the planet right now. And even John Jones, when asked to weigh in on this fight, sided with Makhachev, pointing to how brutally difficult it is to beat someone with his level of wrestling pedigree, which is what makes Gary's confidence so interesting. He isn't approaching this like a heavy underdog just hoping to survive and steal a decision. He has openly said his ideal outcome isn't even an early finish. He wants 4 full rounds of control before closing the show in the 4th, specifically so nobody can point to an early stoppage and make excuses about how it happened. That is not the mindset of a fighter who feels outmatched. That's the mindset of someone who genuinely believes he has found the blueprint. That exact blueprint is precisely why several highly respected minds in the game believe he could genuinely take this all the way to a decision. On top of that, there is a massive piece of Gary's track record that almost nobody is talking about right now. Fans love to question whether his defensive grappling is actually legitimate or if he's just completely untested against elite wrestlers. The reality is, it already got pushed to the absolute limit under extreme pressure. In a gritty battle against Shavkat Rakhmonov, easily one of the most terrifying, dangerous finishers in the entire division, Gary pushed through all 5 rounds and stayed highly competitive the entire time. When you combine his statistics from his matchups with Rakhmonov and former champion Belal Muhammad, Gary stuffed an incredible 15 out of 17 takedown attempts. That is not a striker who crumbles the second someone grabs his hips. That is a concrete defensive foundation specifically engineered to survive the exact stylistic nightmare that Makhachev brings to the table. But let's flip the coin for a second, because the analytical breakdown for this fight still heavily favors the champion. And honestly, it's not even a close debate. Makhachev's strategy has never been about hitting one flashy double leg and just riding out a round on top. His entire game is built on sheer, claustrophobic suffocation. It is a relentless combination of perfect positioning, heavy pressure, and extreme patience, physically grinding an opponent down round after round until their gas tank gets empty, their mental composure shatters, or both. His technical striking has quietly evolved into one of the most dangerous weapons in the UFC, mostly because everyone is so heavily focused on avoiding the takedowns. He uses his boxing and kicks beautifully to close the distance and mask his level changes, meaning even a basic jab is pulling double duty as a hidden setup for a trip. Trying to defend that while simultaneously managing distance is a brutally exhausting problem to solve. Plus, his grappling roots come from high-level sambo rather than traditional American folk-style wrestling, which means his entries look completely different from the standard double legs everyone drills in camp. He locks up body locks off his strikes, catches trips in the clinch, and creates angles off scrambles that are incredibly difficult to scout or outmaneuver. Once he gets you flat on the canvas, his top control is heavy enough to completely paralyze dangerous submission threats and elite strikers alike. This is exactly why almost every single professional breaking down this tape keeps arriving at the exact same conclusion. Gary absolutely has to win this fight strictly on his feet, because nobody in the combat sports world expects him to survive what a championship round feels like underneath a fully locked in Islam Makhachev. The champion's clearest path to victory is arguably the most predictable script in the entire sport right now, but it keeps working because it's flawless. He needs to cut off the cage, completely erase Gary's lateral movement, force the dirty boxing clinch against the fence, and drag him into a grinding dogfight where the challenger lacks proven experience. Gary's path runs in the complete opposite direction. He has to stay incredibly disciplined, keep his back far away from the black line, completely evade clinch entries instead of trying to physically muscle out of them, and build an early lead on the scorecards using heavy volume and footwork. The goal is to frustrate the champion enough that he starts recklessly chasing a finish, leaving himself exposed in the process. Neither strategy is a guarantee, but both are logical enough that the sharpest analysts in the game are treating this as a true elite tactical puzzle rather than a routine title defense. It really comes down to 3 massive questions that will entirely dictate UFC 330. Can Gary's lateral movement win a pure range war against a master at cutting off angles? Can he land enough heavy damage from the outside to make Makhachev hesitate before he ever secures a grip? And if the champion does successfully force him against the cage, will that elite 80% takedown defense actually hold up against a level of exhausting positional pressure Gary has never seen in his career? Nobody serious in this game is pretending they already have the answers. There is a massive legacy on the line here, far beyond just the welterweight title. If Makhachev struggles significantly, even if he walks away with a victory, it instantly sparks a real conversation about whether his historic run of dominance has finally hit its absolute ceiling. And if Gary pulls off the monumental upset, he instantly becomes the single biggest superstar in combat sports overnight, the man who dethroned the fighter that legends like John Jones openly call the pound-for-pound best on earth. So where does the smart money actually land? Gary's attributes are totally legitimate. His footwork is elite, his durability against world-class grapplers is proven, and none of these facts are being fabricated just to build hype around a pay-per-view main event. But when you look at the complete, unfiltered picture, the mountain just looks too steep. The sheer variety of ways Makhachev can secure a takedown, his heavily underrated boxing, his extensive 5-round championship experience, and a suffocating top game that has broken almost every man who has ever stood across from him give him the definitive edge. The tactical advantage heavily points toward the champion timing Gary's movement around the midway point of the fight, dragging him down, and turning this into the exact kind of grinding, high-pressure nightmare the challenger is desperate to avoid. It's not a done deal, and Gary absolutely has the tools to completely rewrite history, but the road to victory is undeniably much steeper for the challenger. So heading into August 15th, here is the real question. Do you think Ian Gary genuinely has the elite footwork and defensive wrestling to keep this fight standing long enough to expose a flaw in Islam Makhachev that nobody else in history could find? Or does the champion inevitably trap him against the fence and turn him into just another chapter of his dominant legacy? Drop your exact predictions in the comments below. And if you want the absolute sharpest fight week breakdowns, live reactions, and betting predictions on the web, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss a single upload.